All right, I was just enjoying that amazing video. Welcome to the June 16th meeting of the Athens Recreation Advisory Board. I want to call to order. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add to the agenda that didn't make it on there?
Possible land swap.
Okay, land swap. Anything else? Catherine, anything you have to add?
No, I'm good,
Okay.
thanks.
New business, pool update. I know there's some things you had in your update here, but yeah, I guess anything wins that are going on. I saw it was packed yesterday. So.
Yeah, I would say the wins are that we're open. There are, there's so many articles out right now about like half of cities' pools aren't open, and that's across the state, it's across the country, that pools aren't opening, swim lessons aren't happening, the lifeguard shortages, and there's a ton of reasons why there's lifeguard shortages, and it's a trend that started before COVID, but definitely was exacerbated by the pandemic. And so I think for us, the win is that we have a lot of guards. Still not enough to be, I think, to meet everybody's needs and wants in the community. But we're continuing to grow that number. So like right now we have 6 people who are getting certified by our pool manager. So she's taken in the mornings. She's doing the certification course with them, and then they'll be completed with their certification on Saturday. So that'll bring us up to 30 lifeguards and 8 head guards, which is a really strong number. And so I think that is a win for sure. We announced swim lessons yesterday, opened up registration for session 1. They're already full. We definitely understand like the timing of the swim lessons, and this is something that we've heard as well with lap swim and also with our general operating hours, that we're still not able to meet every, community member. There's some community members who are missing out on opportunities. And so these are hopefully subject to change, and that's kind of our intent, is that, in the beginning of the season, we opened up with a little bit less hours than we've had in the past, and that was with the hope of being able to extend and add on hours once we kind of got our guards going, figured out availability, so we didn't want to overpromise and then have to pull back. We also don't want to strain our staff so much that they get burned out really easily. We're all it's a hard job. It's a very hard job that they're all doing. And so we're, basically listening to our staff, figuring out availability, figuring out what we can and can't do with what we have. So our hope is that we can, just like we're able to extend our hours beginning on Sunday, that we can get some evening swim lesson opportunities happening. We can look at how we have our operations scheduled as we get more staff in and secured within the position, and figure out, different vacations that folks had already told us about, and making sure that we balance the needs of the community with definitely the needs of our staff to keep them all season. Because I think that's something that we learned from last year. After I gathered a lot of information of, what happened last year. I wasn't in this position last year, so I didn't experience it from this side. And one of those is really that we have to take care of our staff as well. So that's definitely a priority, that we're taking care of our guards and our cashiers, and making sure that, we're not demanding too much from them. Because if they're overworked and overtired, it's not safe. It's not a safe environment for people who are swimming anymore. So if an emergency were to happen. So that's a win. Another win is that our next-gen chlorine generators are working. And from what I learned from last year, heard about from last year, is that they weren't up and running the entire season. We had to do our Plan B, which we still have our Plan B ready to go, anytime we need to. We have other options if they were to go down, but we did a lot of work in the opening, and we have a lot of extra assistance through Buckeye Aquatics maintenance contract. They're kind of like on call. I've learned a lot from them, and they've helped guide me through some of the operations, as well as guiding our pool manager through some of the operations. So whenever hiccups do happen, we have a really good grasp on next steps. So I think those are staffing. We're open. And our pool mechanics are working as of a few hours ago when the last time I was there. So yeah, those are our wins. I don't know. I think I hit on some of the main things as well. We did a free day yesterday for the splash pad because it was so hot, from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and now we're gonna have free. Beginning was yesterday was the first day it was going to begin anyways, but Wednesdays and Saturday mornings from 9 to 11:30 having the splash pad open for free, and then with the intent that once we feel like we can keep, because we're having a guard on rotation there because it does get so many people, and like the first day that we did this, before the pool officially opened, we did it that weekend before. I decided, I was like, oh, the splash pad's ready, let's go. And we got a couple guards who will come out, and we were passing out Band-Aids, left and right. So I think it's, risk management wise, it helps at that facility. It's a specifically, designed facility to have some eyes on. So that's kind of what we're doing right now and how we're operating that. And so hopefully the idea is that we can expand that as well, the splash pad, free to the public times as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I guess I question, do we track usage of the splash pad? Is there any just how many people are going through there? I imagine we do usage to the regular pool, but do we have any numbers?
Yesterday we did track because I told them we need to really keep an eye on capacity. Just didn't know how many people were going to influx, and we can't be over capacity. We're always watching for capacity, but definitely yesterday on the splash pad. But I did not ask about what those numbers were. But it's an awesome thing that that's another thing, the pad, how many people were servicing. Visibly, yes, it's.
I know it's a lot.
Visibly, yes. People were there at 8 a.m., 9 a.m., not 8 a.m., excuse me, it started at 9 a.m. People were there, 9 a.m. I'll tell you a story, and this just was really heartwarming, and met a man who was there with his daughters, and or he's their guardian or something. But anyways, he's bringing his daughters up from Gallipolis, and he had never been to our pool. And he said that his friend had told him to come to our pool because it's a really nice facility. And so I had a conversation with him as I was it was when the splash pad was open and not the open swim yet. And so he just said, "Do you work here?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm the director." Anyways, I had that conversation with him. He was excited. I told him, they're welcome to leave, go get food, come back, just kind of told him how we operated. And then I saw him whenever I do my rounds whenever I'm there, because it's become my baby. and so I was there around 5, and I saw him there still, and so I said, I'm gonna go check in with him and see how he's doing. And I went in and said, how was your experience today? And he was just raving about our staff being so kind and courteous, that the patrons themselves, he was like, I didn't hear any cussing from anybody. I didn't see any vaping or smoking or anything like that. He just said that, those were the things he identified. I just said, what made your experience so good? And he identified those things, and that he was able to go get food and come back, just like I had told him. And I was like, yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that, you had this experience. He was enjoying our Freezy Pops. And then he said that he had such a good time that next time he comes, he wants to book a hotel and stay a couple nights so that they can stay. Because, they're driving from Gallipolis, and yeah, I know. And I was just like, please tell your friends, yes, stay at a hotel with a pool, so then you get a nighttime pool. So anyways, it was, those are really, it makes me feel and see that, things are going well, and we're making a positive impact at least in those who are able to, experience it.
Now, if we can just extend the door around the pool.
No.
That's not
Maybe after hours.
Catherine, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
You kind of alluded to this, and I think that you are doing a good job of meeting the diverse needs of the community and
Thank you.
I would say maybe the demands of the community. A lot of information is shared very easily today in this world of social media. This pool is very different than the previous pool. The previous pool was basically a large rectangular bathtub, and I don't mean that in a negative sense, but it had 90-degree angles, and consequently supervision, observation, and safety in that pool were a little easier to maintain. When all parts of the pool are open, the splash pad, the diving well, the walk-in pool, the lanes, the child thing, for real little kids, how many lifeguards do we need actually, what I'm going to say, in a chair? And I know that the slides are not necessarily in a chair, but in a chair to open all those things at one time.
I have talked about these numbers a lot with Annie to understand it as well, our pool manager, and so, but right now I'm having them swirl. It is in between 11 to 14. It's somewhere in that range. I could get you exact ones. And there's also needs to be head guards on, and they are in rotation to be in chairs as well, but they're not always in a chair. So that's why I'm giving this range of 11 to 14. And then on, say, busier days, we have to have more in rotation because there's more bodies in the water. You have to have more eyes. Some of the areas that don't necessarily require a chair, we have someone there on heavier days, like yesterday. We plan for it, and definitely on weekends whenever we're kind of anticipating higher use. But it's somewhere in that range, off the top of my head.
So that gives us a good idea. It's not the 6 that we could get by with before because of sight lines.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's one of the reasons why there's a lifeguard shortage. Because it's not, yes, there's like less lifeguards, but pools that we're building are getting more and more complex and are requiring more and more lifeguards. More zones that you have to guard, and that's one of the challenges. Is like our demand is increasing, and we're not able to meet it with the amount of people that we need, nationwide. But yeah.
The mayor just flipped me 4, high five at 4. But basically, what he was indicating, we've had to triple the number of people on duty compared to the old pool. And the second question is related to that. Starting Sunday, Monday, anywhere in the near future, we're going to go
Sunday.
Sunday noon to 7. 7 hours the pool will be open. Well, not on Sunday, but Monday through Saturday noon to 7. What is a normal shift for a lifeguard?
So right now our shifts are from 7:30 to 1:30, and then 11:30 to 6:30. And then now they're going to change a little bit because of the operating until 7. So closing takes 30 minutes about. And so I don't know how Annie has changed those, but she's changed the shifts just a little bit. But they're from 6 to 7.5 hours shifts right now.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions?
Any other questions?
I guess is there anything we could be doing to help you with the pool?
That's a great question. And
I can't fix pipes, so
I know. Can you
lifeguard.
lifeguard? Can you
every day, so, yeah.
we need more guards, and that is something that we're going to start pushing. We're going to push again for. We talked about it today, because that's something that like right now. Annie has it so that people can go ahead and get scheduled for 35 hours a week, and that gives 1 to 2 days off a week. And then with the 6 who are coming on, everyone will have 2 days off a week if they so choose. Because the other thing is that people can put in, sub requests, and they can pick up shifts. And so some will work more than those 35, and some will work less based on their availability. But that's kind of where we're trying to balance that of not going ahead and demanding 40 hours a week of folks, and giving the opportunity that if they want to work more, they can, and if they need to work less, they can.
May I say something?
Absolutely.
Yes, you can.
This format's just kind of weird, isn't it? You're
Well,
usually yeah.
I've been in it. I'm learning.
So I think it's very helpful to hear some of what Catherine Ann is saying about the change in structure of pools in general over the years. So those of us who are in the community and hearing concerns about limited hours or changes that don't meet a working person's schedule, to understand how the zoning of the pool requires so much more manpower for safety reasons, being able to reiterate that, not just like, oh, well, they're just hiring more people. Well, it's because, you know, thinking about it in terms of logistics and hearing that, to be able to share that is helpful.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah. It's basically, if you think about it, you know, we open at 8 for swim team, swim club, but that guards get there at 7:30. And then guards are leaving right now at 6:30. But now we're also going to start opening up the opportunity for evening reservations. And so, you know, it's 7:30 get there, and then we're asking guards to stay. And some people do pick up double shifts, and that's their choice, and they're able to do that. Unless they're minors. And so, and then, you know, maybe they're going to stay until 9 p.m. or 10, you know, and there's, thinking long term of how do we keep staff here, how do we create a culture where they can come back, is making sure that we're not putting too much out there. You know, 14, 16-hour operating days is, it's hard to staff.
Well, and just with having
in
the
this heat
multiple
too.
zones of
Yeah, exactly. It's exhausting. It's definitely exhausting. And so, yeah.
How are you advertising for future lifeguards at the moment, Catherine?
We haven't put a new push out, but what we have is we just have it open on the website. And then what we did before the pool opened was we had job fairs, and so we did go to schools. So now we don't have that access of like not going to the high school. So we'll probably do a push through social media again, and rely on our website and rely on that kind of word of mouth, to get more people, if they're interested in guarding, to say, hey, because we're covering the cost. You know, we changed that. We changed that early on in the game, whenever it kind of realized, wait, there's no opportunities for people. So how can we demand that, you know, people get a certification when there's no opportunities for people to get a certification? So we kind of created that ourselves.
So I guess we can help by kind of sharing that process.
Yeah. And if you want, you know, an evening gig, you just become a lifeguard. Honestly, I don't even know if I could pass the test. It's so rigorous. The deep water diving, it's a challenge.
Splash pad. Like, I work in Hocking County, and I know, like, I heard various people in Logan that like talked about driving down too, just because it was free and like something I could
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Just wanted to share that.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I also saw in Logan they're doing like once a month. They're having like a family swim night, like once a month from 7 to 9.
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
doing like the same thing with like a movie night. Just kind of an idea, and they're having it for free with like music and games, just as kind of like a free fun thing for families.
Yeah.
That's kinda cool.
That is cool. I like that. Because, that's a way that it's not like too much demand if we've got like a specific event, you know, thinking about it. I like that. Thanks.
And I got, with the lifeguards, do you think that there are lifeguards out there we haven't tapped, or we kind of maybe scratching the bottom of the barrel with, you know, if our pool takes 3 times? It's just a theoretical question, I guess. I never thought about that.
I have no idea. Because we did, you know, sometimes we did get to a point where we were going through applicants and, you know, nobody's certified, and we're like, okay, that's fine, you know, we'll come interview them if we feel like, you know, that they would be a valuable asset. You know, we did ask, can you swim? Because that's important if they're not certified. We need to know that if we're going to put you through a certification. But then we would be surprised. I remember Aaron, because this is before Annie joined us, and so it was me and Aaron, and we'd be like, oh wait, and they're certified, and they're not returning. So they're like, there are lifeguards out there with certifications, that we didn't give them at some point in time. So I think there are guards out there. I don't know though if we have tapped all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will share to that conversation. You know, as we're watching the Bobcat Swim Club here in Athens, the 8U, 10U, 12U cohort is getting larger. It's larger than it has been, at least in the past few years. The 18 and unders are a smaller cohort now, but certainly, working with Denise and seeing if we can start recruiting a lot of those who are very good swimmers now and preparing them for when they do hit 15, to start, considering getting your lifeguard certification when you're 16 and getting them involved and trying to figure out ways in which to help Catherine Ann to bring that organization even more closely in line and thinking about aquatic safety and some things as we move forward. So I'm encouraged that cohort, which, like I said, for the age groups that I mentioned, they're large now, and as they continue on over the next couple of years, I'm confident that we're going to be able to have them as a cohort that starts to migrate into that, which is only going to augment the guards that exist.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because Denise has been great. She definitely recommended several of the of-age swim club members, pushed them our way, and they're our guards, so it's awesome. And I think that we have ideas that before the pool season started, so now, the pool is taking up a large amount of my time, and which is fine. I'm just, kind of dropping other things as I shift. But before it started, we had a discussion, we had several discussions of how do we create and foster a culture within our community of we are an aquatics community. So how do we get more people certified throughout the year so that when our pool season starts, that we have more people that are interested. And so we've talked about schools and even, Ash, you can speak to this too with the physical activity and wellness courses. There are lifeguarding courses on the books, they just haven't been offered because the demand hasn't been there. So how do we, recruit and push those aquatics classes as lifeguard classes so that folks have that? Because you're going to be almost guaranteed a job if you get your lifeguard certification. You still have to do some other things, like be a good employee, and be responsible. But there's such a demand. It seems like I hope that people can start translating that into I could get a job if I have this certification wherever I go, because there's aquatics facilities everywhere.
I think bringing Annie in as your pool manager was a good way to link kind of what we do at the university, but also as well, I know that the swimming and diving team here do a lot in the summer, so I'm looking at these kind of hourly rates for them. If they're not on full scholarship, that might be a way to tap into them. They're going to be great swimmers. So it might be connecting with the head coach, and obviously they might be doing practices in the morning, working schedules there, but that might be something that you could maybe tap into as well. That's
a good idea. I will follow up with Mason. I just had a conversation with them about pool use.
Is OU they used to have the lifeguarding course every fall and every winter. Probably 2 years ago was the last time I saw it, but it was every fall and every winter that they offered that certification.
I know, speaking with Joe Wakely, the assistant director of the aquatic center, I wanted to get his title right, that they struggled to fill those classes. I don't know why. And so we did get one person in to the spring one before it was too late, and then we worked with them and they offered one for, it was either 9 or 10 people that we had that we needed certified. So they offered kind of it was open to anybody, but we filled it.
And they're inexpensive. They're not expensive.
No, they're really, for what we get, it's relatively inexpensive, for sure. So yeah, that's why we, said, well, we should be paying for this because it's not, the trade-off is priceless.
Ash, you just said something that struck a chord with me. I had reached out to Heather Benedict, who was on the diving team at OU, throughout her academic career, and still dives, but is into running CrossFit these days. And with our diving well and the 2 1-meter boards, I think it would be interesting to see if maybe, the diving team, any of the current divers would be interested during the summer months here in the city to put on a diving clinic and see if we can teach some younger kids, and maybe work with the Bobcat Swim Club to have a future diving component. But, we've got this amazing dive well that is just well suited, which, in my mind's eye, when we were designing the pool, that was one of the things I thought. We were going to do a 3-meter board and a 1-meter, but it was like too expensive. It doesn't fit in the budget right now. We still have that opportunity, though. The way it's designed is that if there was a growing diving community, we could swap out one of the boards with a 3-meter board. But anyway, my point being that as Catherine Ann's looking at programming for this thing, I think there's other opportunities that are yet to be realized for the pool, and that's where all of you could be helpful.
But it's interesting you mention that because one, we've got a diving student athlete actually in our program right now. So I don't know whether she's on campus for the summer, but I know that she does diving lessons as part of kind of her practicum and her internship stuff. So that'd be awesome. But also I'm kind of close with the swimming coach and the diving coach here. So maybe that's that connection we can look at, trying to get them involved and maybe take them away from the aquatic centre and actually come into the community a little bit more and get that connection. And I know Mason's massive on doing stuff like that, so hopefully I can connect with him and Brittany Fisher, the head diving coach, and see where that takes us.
Nice. That's
Two
exciting.
thoughts. One related to what you just talked about with the new NIL laws. We might very well be able to compensate those folks also, which might make it a little more attractive to them to do it. But the other thought was, in the state of Ohio right now, when you get to be in 9th grade, you can get your physical education credit in a wide variety of ways. You can go to the traditional PE class. If you play a sport, that can count. If you're in cheerleading, that can count. If you're in the marching band, that could count. I wonder if anybody's looked into, if you were a lifeguard for the summer, because schools do offer summer school, if you were a lifeguard for the summer, could that count as your PE credit?
Or what if a lifeguard certification course for your PE credit? 2. I don't know.
Yeah, that might fall under health. I'm not sure. I'm not a curriculum expert, but we have 5 school districts in this county. And I know many, many kids are looking for ways to get well more than the 22 or 23 credits they need. And if this would allow them to free up a period during the academic year to take one of those courses they want, either in their resident high school or through College Credit Plus at OU, it'd be worth looking into.
Yeah,
it's obviously
definitely.
too late for this year, but for the future as you build your pool of lifeguards.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just going to say it out loud. I feel like fall is a great time to have a giant pool get together to everybody, because all these ideas are amazing. But if we start in February, because there's going to be other stuff, I think that's amazing.
Well, this is, all it takes is a couple phone calls right now, and then we could, as we wrap up the pool season, make plans to rock it out. I do have on my massive pool checklist that we are going to have a celebratory party. Me and my staff are rocking the pool season, so.
Don't lose sight of that. It's important.
Brandon, you're right.
Yeah.
I think for this body to really start thinking about things, I'm a certified scuba instructor. I'll teach scuba diving in the city swimming pool.
Yeah. I just know, because sometimes we start things too late, but I think, because I'm hearing the class for OU is if we started in the fall, then we can have it for spring semesters, the credits and stuff, and so we don't miss that window, because I think there's a lot of connections, but it's if you only have 4 months before or something, but this is great. And then remind me, we did not have a pool manager last year, right?
That's correct.
Okay. That's awesome. We had that this year. Sounds like it's working out great. Okay.
Yes, it's much better.
We did.
Oh.
Didn't it? Well, not the duration, I guess. Sorry. Okay.
Right.
So, but we have
right.
in place, and it seems like it's
Was that
fruitful.
the facility operations manager? Okay.
Okay. It was different. Okay, that was the dual. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, does anybody have any other questions or comments, or just keep sharing the successes with us, I guess. I'll just keep driving by and not lifeguarding, so that's not my role. So. Okay, so the next, I guess the next couple items are connected. The first one's the Athens Parks and Recreation Advisory Board proposed name change. So I received an email from Councilman McCary basically talking about this, and it kind of got kicked to us to kind of have a discussion before this goes to council, but I don't know if everybody got to watch the video from council about the discussion of the name of this board and the purpose and stuff like that. But I wanted to kind of just bring this to the board and see what people thought, how they felt. Basically the idea was it would insert, is my understanding from Micah McCrary, was inserting parks in there so it's not just recreation. Because recreation can sometimes feel reductive, where it's just sports or something, even though this body does more than that. And so adding the parks would expand that. So I just wanted to bring it here and see, because I think council's looking for some input from this body before they make a decision on that. So, if anybody had any thoughts on that? So.
I think it sounds logical.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So, what are we even right now?
We are currently the Athens Recreation Advisory Board. That is what's in the books everywhere. It is the Athens Recreation Advisory Board. So we've been apparently operating under the APR advisory, whatever, incorrectly. It's always been the Recreation Advisory Board. So yeah, it's official name.
And for the name change, it has to have a legislative action
Correct.
to change it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense.
I would be for inserting parks then.
Okay.
It seems like it would encompass enough, but not too much. That's just mine.
Do we have to have action? We don't have.
No, we don't have to. I felt
He's
very
leaving the floor
uncomfortable having council just do this. And so Micah reached out, and so he emailed myself and Alan was like, hey, and so it came to us to say, hey, let's have a discussion before they move it to actual action, which makes sense since I'd hate for us to be renamed something without us actually having a discussion. And so not knowing everyone's ideas, I thought I would put it up here and just see how everybody felt about that, because I definitely feel when it's just recreation, I've voiced this before, it just feels like it's just sports, which is, this department has way more than that, so.
Right. Well, and the venues that are under
Yeah,
the department are mostly parks.
yeah.
We don't have a lot of physical facilities, so it makes sense.
Andrew, to your question, that's why I'm here. I'm the liaison, so that's why I'm just listening, trying to get an idea what your consensus is, so that when this comes up to council, I could share or I could just say to council, watch the video at the 5:02 mark. This makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So that's the role. Then from council, things are coming up, I bring back to this group, and that's the role that I play. And then Jeff Reisner plays the same role for AMAC.
Yeah. Well, the programming, the staffing, all of that's happening in the parks for the programming that is recreational. It makes sense to have the name be cohesive, well-rounded, and encompassing.
But then you could also argue, if it's recreation, you can recreate in a park, so it could encompass that. With having recreation. So
Right.
I guess really, to me, it's kind of laughable. I just would like to know what direction, what it is we, should be doing. And if we focus not on arts because somebody else is doing that, that's fine. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I feel like probably if we had to pick, it really doesn't matter. Because like I said, it's like you can recreate in a park, and so if you're gonna promote recreation, then you're gonna want to take care of where you recreate. So it's arbitrary. But
I think where some of the confusion came, and I finally figured this out the other night, I think it was after the mayor said something. The department is called Arts, Parks, and Recreation. The department is called Arts, Parks, and Recreation. Relative to that, we have two advisory boards. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and AMAC. They both advise to the mayor. And I think what happened over time was both of us assumed a little bit of the other's responsibilities, and there was never a clear definition. But I think the definition, at least the way I'm hearing it is the Arts, Parks, and Recreation Department. And that department has two groups that represent the citizens of Athens, and advise in their respective areas, whether it be arts or parks and recreation. The suggestion is, though, because there is sometimes some overlap, periodically those two groups meet together. So I think that brings a little clarity to it, and if I'm wrong, please, but it dawned on me the other night, where we call it that department, Arts, Parks and Recreation. I think it confused some of the other things.
Oh, I understood it differently.
Okay.
I actually understood it as just the word recreation itself was limiting, and parks were neglected without having a board, even though this board functioned that way. So putting that name in there provided coverage of the entire department. Does
And I recommended that. I mean, I said,
Yeah, that's like that-
during
so it's
council,
like-
I
so
said,
there's a part not
suggestion
missing.
is to bring, I don't care, you add
Right.
parks to it, because I agree with all of you that it's the parklands and it's the recreational components that is recreating in the parklands, you know, and then we have arts on the other side. And I would encourage this body to read carefully through the bylaws of the Rec Advisory Board. And then I also equally encourage you to read the bylaws for the Athens Municipal Arts Commission. The Rec Advisory Board doesn't speak to arts at all. It's completely divorced of that. There's nothing in there. And it's interesting because it's a longer standing board than AMAC. AMAC was established in 2002. The Rec Advisory Board was in the 90s. And AMAC has 2 or 3 references to, collaborating with the rec, in that it calls it the Park and Rec Advisory Board, and it calls it the Parks and Rec Commission or something like that, whatever. And so, a friendly suggestion, if you were to think about this, it would be great to see a parallel connection point from whatever you call yourselves, referencing, quarterly meetings with AMAC so that we have alignment. Catherine Ann, as you're well aware, has really been pushing for music in the parks and more arts elements going into the parks, and that's where all of you who have oversight with the parks and advisory to Catherine Ann, you're communicating with AMAC and saying, AMAC's got, they're coming to you and saying, hey, we got this idea, guys. It'd be really cool to do, what's the possibility of having a mobile stage? We already have an inflatable screen, and we start migrating that around up in Highland Park somewhere and having embedded in a neighborhood, movies, a movie night or something like that. And for you guys to advise and communicate back and forth would be the best path forward. One of the best meetings I have seen in the city of Athens when it comes to our boards and commissions was pre-pandemic, and Brandon, you may have attended that. It's the first time that I'm aware of that we ever brought together all boards and commission members, and we all met at the community center, and it was an extremely rich evening to where board members who were neighbors sat there and said, I didn't know you served in that board. What do you guys do? But again, getting back on topic, to have AMAC and to have the Rec Advisory Board or Parks and Rec Advisory Board having a meeting each quarter to where you both come together and sit there and talk about plan for next year, plan for now, whatever. But at least the two are communicating back and forth and able to communicate that to Catherine Ann and then communicating that to me.
So as far as the name goes, we're all on board with changing it, right? So that, or
think so.
do you have concerns?
No. I mean, I think I have concerns with just recreation. I've always had concerns because I think it is limiting. Because I think this department does so much more in the sport. So I think adding in parks makes sense. So yeah, I think that, I've got thoughts about other stuff, but that's later
For
on.
clarity, yeah.
Yeah. All these are connected or whatever. But yeah, no, I think that makes sense because I think someone who's interested in parks would not join this space if it was just recreation. I think we promoted this as APR. The other name we had, I think we got from the people who applied and stuff like that. It was actually less about recreation and more just the other thing, the parks and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I think that's important just because it limits who we're going to get in this space. And so yeah, I think that makes sense. If that's what that's what our charge is going to be and stuff like that. So, but yeah, we don't need any action or anything like that. I kind of just want to bring it here because I think it's important that this body speaks and then it's heard by council and then they because there was a meeting and we weren't there, and so it was good that it came here so we could at least say, hey, this is what we're thinking, and some good ideas were kicked around there. So, yeah, any other thoughts? Anything else about that? I mean, the next thing's connected. Stop focusing on discussing art. That's what I heard in the meeting. That's not your charge. Yeah, I just want to bring that up. Me personally, I had a question because I get confused about our second part. So our duty is to advise about job qualification and employment. How do we do that with arts? Do we just leave that alone? Because I don't think that's AMAC's charge. And so that's where I thought the linkage gets lost about that, and because I understand, well, I shouldn't say it. I just was wondering how everybody felt about that, because that's where I feel like, and we haven't done that in the past. So I was wondering if that even needs to be there, because that is one of our duties, whether people know that or not. And so I was just wondering what everyone thought about that piece or whatever.
So this, because I'm new to this, so the stop focusing, discussing art, not your charge comment, was it intended as a programmatic suggestion or integration?
I think it was just,
suggestion?
it is, if you look at what this is, it doesn't really mention art. And
No, it does, but I think something like I had emailed to Catherine had to do with art, not to do with AMAC, but it was about impacting the accessibility of an area, not about the art itself, and about the surface treatment and that. So yes, it's art, but it was relevant to the park. So like the stop discussing art, that's why I'm saying, is it a programmatic thing or
I think even
something
that's
else?
a good, because it like the way I view AMAC, and the difference I think I view AMAC versus us is, we're working with Catherine Ann, and so our purview, so like the good example is the bike path. That's a recreation space, but that's not us, so we didn't deal with that. Whereas, AMAC deals with art in the entire city.
Right.
And so that's why it feels like their scope is much bigger than what our scope is. And that's why, I don't know, that's why I want to bring all this stuff up. And I think this isn't a new thing, so you're not the only one dealing with this. I think we've dealt with this since I've been on this board, trying to figure out what the discussion, where we should go. We've moved in different ways, and this is the first time I think I've heard all levels. I know the mayor's been here and had discussions, but I think council as well, of trying to pull that in so we can be more focused, because I think since it's clearly written, but I think it's been interpreted different ways, and so that's caused us to go and veer in different directions and not sometimes, I think, do the duties we had here. If that's clear as mud, sorry.
I'd like to read the others and table that for next week. I'm sorry. I think it's a big question.
Oh,
I think depending on what is really meant by that, we could discuss it for 3 weeks.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So.
I guess I'm wondering what art things have come up on the board in the past.
I'm sorry?
I guess I'm wondering what art things have come up in this board that you feel have made them say those things.
Well, I think there's now an art component of the updates, so that didn't exist. When I first joined the board, it was very much, I think we just talked about sports and stuff, and then a lot of the people on the board were actually asking for different things, about what was going on, and so, and we actually, at pre-pandemic times, some of the directors would come to these meetings as well and give their reports and stuff like that, but it also just depended on what's going on. The pool was being built, there's always a different project and stuff like that. We used to did Women's and Sports Day, so depending on what was going on, our focus has kind of shifted, so.
In terms of arts, a couple things off the top of my head. One would be the mural on the maintenance building on East State Street. The second would be the Storybook Trail at Sells Park. And then now there's one, I believe, at Richland Avenue I've not seen yet, but I did go up and skate around a little bit on the Sells Park Trail there. So those two projects were of an art nature that came before this board over the last 3 years.
But yeah, this is a big discussion, but I think, like I said, this advising the administration in relations relating to job qualification and employment of personnel in the Athens City Recreation Department, I read that as the APR department, which is not devoid of art, and that's why I think that's where I wonder, should that piece come out or should it incorporate art? I don't know the answer to that, and this was also written, when it was just a recreation department, and so does that need to be updated? I don't know, but that piece, I think it's important, and that, because that piece is not in AMAC's mission. I think advising Catherine Ann on art hires and stuff like that. They may do that, but it's not explicitly listed out. It's explicitly listed out on our part, and that's where I get hung up about divorcing, arts out and just making it parks and recreation. So,
Well, I think too, in the timing of when the AMAC was established, there was not an art department when this was written.
correct.
And that kind of, when Arts West was built and the theater building was being taken down and all of that, that's when the department took on kind of a new role, a new face in encompassing that. So it may be good to, as we meet with AMAC over the next 6 months, or once or twice, to talk about that and propose to City Council incorporating collaboration when that happens. If they're hiring someone in Emily's department or in Catherine Ann's, it's very different.
Well, if I may, let me just, I think we need to just take a step backwards. And again, point of clarification, all of you are advising me, and AMAC advises me. So when, as opposed to going and saying something to council, it would be, advising me and, hey, Mayor, we think that there should maybe be, as a suggestion, a change to the bylaws at AMAC, to where AMAC is now responsible for, Arts West and arts hiring underneath Arts West, because Arts West is our only artistic facility, whereas, as Brandon, so eloquently put, that AMAC unto itself is responsible for the art bench overlooking, the nature preserve, in the Hope properties.
And I guess,
Murals.
what I'm saying is, it's, as we work to meet with AMAC, then revisiting this later, is so that we all understand more kind of what's going on and how to make that recommendation, that it's so big. Because I think that's why it's different, it's just a huge gap in time when they were established. And there wasn't a staff, there was no staff when AMAC was established. There was no art staff.
All very true.
When the Rec Advisory Board was established, there wasn't much staff under Parks and Rec either. As a matter of fact, I think there was all of 3 people.
Wow.
And the board itself was kind of the extended arm of making Athens Parks and Recreation work back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like this section B was in there, like you said, because to advise, because there's some people, and then so that's why the language, but with it being there, because I just say, hey, everyone, read the code. Okay, hey, this is what it says, and what needs to be changed, because I guess my frustrations are, we go by this, but then we spend 6-8 months going a certain way, and then it changes all of a sudden, and that's lost time, and I guess we don't have time to be going in the wrong direction. I think that's where my fear is, because we've been working in this space, I think, to incorporate more art, and then at the last city council meeting, it was like, stop doing that, and that's wasted time. We could have been focusing on the pool, we could have been focused on, and that's fine. I just don't want to do that again. I think that's where my feeling is, because none of us are paid to be here, and there's things, and we're focused on something that doesn't matter. I would say it doesn't matter. We're not focusing on something that we could be helping Catherine Ann with, and so I just don't want to kick this can down again, but I want to also just allow this board to speak, because council's going to watch this and see, and they might take action. I don't know, but I just want everybody, y'all are here, you're part of this, and your interests, I think, are important to, look at this and see what it says to you, because other people have looked at it and interpreted it their own way, and so I think you can do the same thing and see what it means to you for why you joined this space, because this can also change. I think that's important. None of this is how it'll always be. This document is, these charges are from, you said, the 90s or something like that, probably, so probably due for an update or something like that, and it might make sense to change the name and maybe update the charges, so they fit more in line with what AMAC's doing, and like you said, there was no, AMAC didn't exist and all that stuff, so it all is tidy up so the new people can come in and just read this. Because I think it's just very important that when we all turn to dust, you can come to this and read this, and it makes sense. Because that's what happens in the city. You know, people go and they read these things, and then they say a certain way, and then someone comes and, oh, that's actually not what we do. It's this. But this is very important, so we're following that stuff, you know. So, no, we're not going to turn to dust. So.
Okay, I have 8 minutes. I'm sorry. No one else is able to be there that was originally going to be there to like introduce the band.
Oh,
so
okay.
I am now the one. So sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I'm just letting you know.
No worries.
If you had any other
anybody have
questions
any
for me.
thoughts about that? I guess we could table that and then, I don't know. Just talk about it later. Okay. So I'll bring up, I did talk with Chelsea, the chair of AMAC. I'm personally against having a arts liaison person. I know that was kicked around. I think we've done that before. I was that person. I think that minimizes the conversation. If we can elevate this every 6 months, maybe quarterly, like the mayor said, hopefully that will allow better communication. So I don't know if anybody has thoughts about that. That will require another meeting or 3 or 4. So just FYI, you know, I know y'all signed up for once a month. It just, you know, we can maybe work out if it's half the committee or something like that. So, or board, excuse me. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts about that.
What was Chelsea's thought?
She said she just wants more happening. You know, she didn't really have an idea of what it looked like. So just she recognized, yeah, we need, because she was at the city council meeting where the names were, and I think AMAC was really worried that we were trying to absorb what they were doing, and so they wanted to make sure that's not the case. So.
Well, it could be that if we're going to do quarterly meetings, that you identify the month that meeting, joint one, is going to be, and you know they meet on Wednesday prior to our Thursday meeting, so it could be that you kind of go back and forth between. So in March, it's going to be Rec Advisory Board goes to AMAC space for their Wednesday meeting. In having trouble with month math right now. The next quarter month, AMAC comes to Rec Advisory space for the Thursday meeting. So I think that could be a way. So it's not necessarily an additional meeting, but as we identify the months where it is going to be a joint, and then we all know ahead of time, is it going to be a Wednesday or Thursday? That could be a way. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't add an extra meeting to you guys. That month's meeting becomes that joint meeting, and then that's the meeting for the month for both of you, and then you go on into the next month after that.
That's a good idea.
I like it.
I can table this next part because Catherine said, how can this better accomplish these duties? Other items, land swap was something you had? Alan, what was that? Or that's what you said, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Okay.
contacted you about
Way to
earlier.
look
Catherine Ann said she's down to 8 minutes. I don't know, this might be something that
6
you
minutes.
do with the,
6 minutes.
or 6 minutes, I'm sorry, I can't read, at the July
Okay,
meeting.
that's fine.
Because at the time, that you had that call for, agenda items.
Yeah.
Some things have changed.
Okay,
In
okay.
terms of the process and the timing.
Okay.
So it might be a little premature to get a discussion of that now.
You know,
Okay.
I can fill in though, and, significant change to what was going on. So what Alan's referencing is the fire station headquarters, where it was gonna go on Stimson Avenue. And to do that, because that's university land, is there something comparable that could, be a counter lease to do this? Well, we just found out on Monday morning that DSA up in Columbus said, the only state properties, only way a state property can be leased is for a 25-year term with no possibility of it, having kind of a rejoiner on that to where it extends out for another set period of time. So that whole thing is not going to happen. So that makes that conversation pretty easy.
Okay.
I have done a multitude of interviews today, so it's good for you guys to know
Okay.
too. If anybody would like to talk to me in any more detail about where we were hoping to be able to put the fire station headquarters, I'd be more than happy to do it with you offline, or watch WUB tomorrow or the next day or whatever.
All right. Catherine Ann, I guess in 4 minutes, if you want to, thank you, Mayor, for that information. Your staff update, I know you sent this, but anything you want to highlight?
Yeah. Well, we already did a pool. Summer camp is happening. Doing awesome. We were able to onboard our new full-time program specialist for Parks and Recreation, and so she's been rocking it out over there. We threw her into camp, and she's doing a great job. And Fun Home Performances. So this was the first time that Arts West has done a production of our own, and so that happened last weekend and the weekend prior. And it was a really big success and really exciting, and something that Emily had spoken to me about early on in my time as the director that she really wanted to try out. And so we figured out, we asked for some money from council, they approved, and we did it. And it was exciting. It's definitely something that we want to do in the future, and Emily and her crew over there did an awesome job directing and producing, and yeah, it was very exciting. That's a huge win. We have our second concert in the parks in just a few minutes. And that's exciting too. And just a reminder, it's a collaboration between Arts, Parks and Recreation and AMAC. So we're both supporting each other in this endeavor financially and staff-wise and parks-wise. But it's to support AMAC's 20th anniversary. And we'll have a gallery in the community center. That's a collection of the work that AMAC has done over the 20 years, and it will be up in the next few weeks. So we're excited about that, to be able to present that to the community as well. Trying to think of any other big highlights, because these are all kind of details. I think that is, I don't really have any updates on some of the bigger projects. We're still kind of, the firms that we've hired are still working on documents and design and whatnot for the tennis and pickleball, and for the restroom facilities, and for the community center roof. So those are all just kind of waiting. We did get the shade structures delivered today. Oh, okay. Finally. Months. So they were able to start, I think, is what I was told. I haven't actually seen it, excavating this afternoon to be able to put the post in. And so hopefully by next week we will have shade structures in the dugouts on field 1 and 2. And then concrete work will be next, but we have to get those shade structures in first. So a little behind for the season, but they will be there, and that is very exciting. I think that's it for the big highlights. As far as things that I want to make sure, and I've had this kind of as like what I would like in 1 minute, the advisory board, and what I would think that one of the things that we can focus on is we really need a new master plan for our department moving forward, which will require reaching out to community members and seeking input and putting together, it's going to be a big process, like a 1 to 2 year process. I'm also going to work with some faculty and their classes beginning in the fall to help us with that endeavor as well. The research component, how do we get focus groups, but I think that's something that as an advisory board that you all could be really impactful and helpful with, if that's something that you would like to do. Some of the past things that the Rec Advisory Board has done is help with the master plan, but that was back before 2014. It was kind of out in 2014 as the 2014 master plan, but I think that's something that I would find, and the city, I'm sure, would find of huge value. So it kind of helps paint our path forward for the next few years of what kinds of projects do we need to be doing in our facilities. So I need to run. I'm sorry. You don't have to end because of me. Here's that. But I hope y'all are able to make it. I need to get there so that I can check in with the bands real fast and then come up with something fun to say. And it's not storming, so yes.
Thanks, Catherine.
Storms are all north of 70 according to the radar.
I like it. Good news, Alan. Thank you.
Don't get a ticket.
I'm not. I won't speed. Just a few minutes. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Catherine.
Thanks,
See ya.
Catherine.
I guess we can just jump back to that last point. How can we better accomplish these duties? I think it's just important we are aware of the main things that we have. I think we've done a really good job of advising administration adoption of programming policies and procedures, like we did with the pool today. there's not a lot of hirings and stuff like that we've been involved with, but I do want to bring attention to C, prepare and submit an annual report of his activities to the mayor and such. I don't think since I've been on here we've done that, Mayor. Have you ever received? Yeah, and I don't know if that's happened before the time I've been on here, but I'd like to just kind of highlight that for everybody here, because I think that it's helpful to do like an annual report like the rest of the departments do, just so we can, I don't know, just sit down and take stock of what we have done, so, because those things are important and you can look and then make goals for the future. But yeah, I just didn't know if anybody had thoughts about that. I know that a lot of you are new, so, you're like, how does this board even function, but you do bring a lot of, value to this space, so.
Brandon, about that annual report, I have a question, and I guess it's more directed to the mayor. Are there other groups that do this? And the reason I ask that, if they do, is there a format that this group could follow so that we're not reinventing the wheel?
There is not, Alan.
Okay.
No, none of them do. And to your question, no, I have never received a report from the Rec Advisory Board. I'm going to be honest, I didn't know that line existed, nor did I ever expect to see a report. My report basically comes through the director for Arts, Parks, and Rec, because the director, does have to put together an annual report that goes into our stack of annual reports from all the different departments. And so maybe that's the easiest way, to where you're helping Catherine Ann produce her annual report, and making sure that things aren't being missed, that this group has been integral in moving forward. So again, not to put an additional burden on this body, I think that's the smartest path forward, is just having some oversight and helping Catherine Ann when she's pulling together her annual report, and making sure things aren't missed. Or that's where I think you guys would be immensely helpful to the whole department.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there might be some value to, because there's sometimes things we do separately from, like maybe even advocating for the department, if budget-wise or something like that. But it might be a time for us, because I don't think there's, since I've been at a time where we sat and what did we do this year? What happened? It's always been kind of like, what's next? But I think looking back, without creating a ton of more work, because I don't want to do that. I don't think anybody wants to do that here, but because I do think this space is, we started, advertising for members and have an application. I don't know if other commissions even do that, but we're the trailblazers, in case you know it or not, so we're going to keep that going. So,
No pun intended, trailblazer.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you have become a role model for how other boards and commissions should be operating, because you're a body of what, seven members, and to have that force multiplier to where, the people that and you know them well, and you're sitting there going, so-and-so might be a good board member, and you have a pipeline to where they can submit applications. You guys are the ones who vet those applications, and then you advise to me. I think it's a great model for the city. I'd like to see the Shade Tree Commission do that. I'd like to see AMAC do that. The toughest one to fill is Board of Zoning Appeals. If I could get the Board of Zoning Appeals to do something like that, it'd be wonderful.
So I have two questions. What month do the annual reports come to you? Is it a July or calendar year? End of fiscal?
Calendar year.
So every December, they prepare them for January, February time?
Correct.
Okay.
They start the process in December, but I typically don't see them until February, because
They need end of year numbers.
Markup.
So what I think we could do to help Catherine and the department, sorry, that's a mouthful, is maybe, now that the pool stuff is calming down, to ask her the types of information that she'd want to know from us, that we could put a questionnaire out in November, like, did you attend any, like, to each of us as commission members, just an example, did you attend any other meetings and speak on behalf of the Rec Advisory Board? Were you involved in any, of these types of activities? Just to put a tally in there to give her some metrics, as well as other involvement, and then fill in the line item, helped with this number of grants or whatever it is, and then it's just a form that might be just easy to pass on to her.
I love it. Yeah, I think all that stuff is.
I would volunteer to email her in a couple weeks and ask her what kind of information she wants to get a form together.
I will say something this board has I don't say done a poor job, but I don't think is really taken in as something as, I don't think this board has used our capacity to reach the community in a broader way. I think we used our networks, we're already connected with, but I don't think we've never had too many, okay, the advisory board is going to have a meeting about the pool or going to have a meeting about the parks or something, and then they join, and then that's something I think that could help Catherine, if that makes sense. We're going to have whatever the topic is that that's divisive or has, we can have a meeting like that, and I think we could do a better job of doing, like you said, like a questionnaire, metrics. I know that's something we've talked about, just like, so then we can start collecting them now and then compare them. Are we doing better or worse? I think that's something this space could do more of to help the department. So yeah, like your questionnaire thing, I think is great. And yeah, then we have that in our annual report, and then that just kind of gets built on. And then when the new people come in, they see that annual report. Like there's nerds like me who read annual reports, and they're like, oh yeah, that's something we could do. And so I think that's something we could have that will help the onboarding process. Because I apologize to new members, there really is an onboarding process. You're in it right now, and I think that's something we could also get better at. So.
If I may, one last update, then I too have to leave, not to go listen to music, although I'd like to. I've got to take my daughters to cheer. Yeah, I know. As you're probably aware, we do have a right of entry, agreement with Ohio University to have our football pitches down on the driving range, which has been very fruitful. Better than where we typically have the soccer taking place along the river, which is terrible ground, always being flooded. It's underwater right now, and we'll continue to work with Ohio University to formalize an agreement to where we could actually do some structural. It's light structural changes, i.e. putting up a large net that run the length of the property to be able to separate the driving range from the football pitches down there. And yes, I'm saying football pitches.
I'm impressed, man.
I'm purposely doing that. I've been coached well by Dominic Brooks. I think that language is even in the agreement to use the land.
I was confused. I'm just going to say, I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I get it now.
To Americanize it, it's a soccer field.
Yeah, I got you.
The football pitches. So, and we'll continue to work on that because I think that's going to be another great asset and proper use of property for both youth and adult. Because eventually, then we'll be able to pull the youth soccer football pitches off of the outfields down there on field 1, field 2. And, although it seems to have worked quite well down there. And as Catherine had indicated, we'll continue to work on West State Street Park. The parking area down there has been effective. You always get the comment that you need more, and because it's a heavily used park at the end of the day. But we were effective in getting parking off of the grass areas. We ended up putting split rail fence all along there, which I contend looks nice. And as Catherine Ann said, put the shade sails up, and we'll redo the dugouts. I will tell this body, all of you, that my intention is to continue to have Field 1 and Field 2 dedicated and certainly prioritized to female softball, youth softball down there, because my experience in the past had been that they tended to get bumped around depending on field conditions, and that won't happen anymore. It didn't happen this year, and it won't happen moving forward. And that Field 1 and Field 2 will continue to be improved upon so that our female youth have a good experience as they're learning how to play ball, whether that's baseball or softball.
I've got a question as well based on kind of what you said there with the youth sport programming. I've just gone on the website and what Catherine Ann give with our updates. We've got youth t-ball and coach pitch baseball, but there's nothing representing softball, and I know it's an up and coming US kind of phenomenon where obviously it's in the last Olympics. So from a diversity perspective, maybe that could be embedded into their youth programming. It was a question I was going to ask Catherine Ann, but maybe that's something that we can table for July and talk about more the sport programming and show a bit more diversity through that process.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Commissioner.
Mayor. Appreciate it. I don't know. Does anybody have any other thoughts or lasting comments?
That's interesting.
I saw here like about that she had wanting like to establish partnerships and secure grant funding, which I would be like interested in maybe helping like write grants in my like master's program. We learn a lot of like grant writing things.
Okay.
So I'd be like interested. I can email her about helping, but also there's like everyone in like a master's of social work program is required to take a class about grant writing where you like do mock grants, but maybe like a partnership could be with like some of the social work faculty and Catherine and like having students actually write grants that'll benefit the community. I'm sure like the social work faculty would definitely be on board with that because like environmental justice is also big in social work, but I don't know, maybe that could be something I could talk
Oh
to
yeah, no
Catherine
that
about.
so that was a discussion we had. Shauna Schweitzer was a member before. I think she's working on the Friends of Arts part, and that's a space where they're trying to get grants. Yes, absolutely, because I think I think it's only Catherine usually writing the grants, and it's
So,
it's
I
a
mean, there's,
lot.
like,
So
could be like 40-something students having to write a mock grant, and if they're writing it actually for something rather than like a proposed thing that isn't being submitted somewhere, because we have to do the full thing, like maybe that could be something that could also benefit.
See, and facilitating that would go in our what we did this year.
yeah.
Because I'm sure like the social work faculty that I know would love that actually.
Yeah, and if you could
But-
explore that and email us and how that would be fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think that's how this board should be working. We're expanding into, and then getting other people, then they're invested in our space, and that'd be, and any money we can get, would be amazing. So,
I think people are more passionate too when it's a real cause.
yeah.
Like when there's the potential to see fruition of some of their work. That could be very positive.
And then that's something also, back when you term up that, continues, so it's not just, because that's the other thing. I think a lot of things have been member specific. Oh, I'm part of this community, and then I keep this going, then I leave, and that partnership's not there. And if we can kind of embed that, hey, every year we have new masters work, social work, students come in and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would definitely email Catherine Ann. I mean, for everybody has seen that, but yeah, the other needs at the very end, she has a list of things that she has asked for, and we've been slowly filtering in, but I think looking at that would be helpful. But the 5-year master plan, I think, is truly important to get that, because I think the city will move on without us, if we don't provide that input, and so we really need to get that done. So.
And I don't know if the money carried over, but there was $50,000 allocated for that last year for the master plan.
Okay. For the other person to come in and say, yeah, okay. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts? Somehow we're keeping these under an hour, 2 hours. I'm very impressed with this group. We did a lot of work in the olden days. It would be
Kind of like this.
6:30, and we still would have been
Kind
on
of
the
like
first
this
item.
4:30 start.
Yeah, that's good. Does 4:30 work? Because Catherine Ann has another AMAC event next month, so it'd be July 21st. I am not going to be at that meeting because I'm getting the heck out of Dodge after Brew Week and going to enjoy a vacation. But does 4:30 that day work, or
4:30 works.
the following week, the 28th, if that works too? So
4:30.
4:30. Okay. I can email Catherine and see if that works. I don't know if she has. I might think it's the last event she had. I'll double check, but
I think it's the last one that's on the
yeah. So
calendar.
I don't know if she'll have more stuff, but I'll see if we can do that. But you'll get an email about that. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll give you a motion to adjourn.
Give a second.
Second.
Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks.
5:43.